And we're back. Hello and welcome to Inside Music, episode number 111. I'm your host, James Shotwell, and we have a fantastic show for you this week. My guest is none other than my buddy Jono from the band Baggage, formerly of the band The Swellers, who is here to discuss his group's new EP, The Good That Never Comes, which was released today, July 12th, via Bandcamp. It's a fantastic record, and I'm very excited to talk to Jono about it, and I'm even more excited to be back on the show with you. It's been about a month since we released our show telling you that we weren't going on hiatus, and then you know what? That's exactly what happened. But it wasn't planned, I swear to you that much. It has been a crazy month in my life. If you listen to the Swapcast we ran with Not Quite Pod, you know a little bit about what's going on, but basically my whole life was upended. I ended up moving out of Minnesota. I'm back in Michigan now, staying with my parents while I locate a new place. I'm still working for Holics. I'm still doing the podcast, but you know, sometimes things come up in life and you've got to push a few things to the side in order to focus on you and what you need to do so that you can get in the right mental space to continue doing quality work. And hopefully that's what the last month has done for me. Now we're back with a bunch of new shows on the horizon, and the very first is this conversation with Jono, which I had literally minutes ago. I got off the phone with him and I immediately set to recording this introduction so that we could get the episode out, so all of you who have been asking about where the show is and have been so wonderfully patient and supportive could have a new episode to listen to. Again, Baggage Band just released their new album today. It's a 3-song EP called The Good That Never Comes, and it further proves that they are something important in the world of punk rock. They exist in that weird area between punk and pop punk, and they kind of have a decidedly adult sound to them. I don't mean that in that they're thematically adult or that they're overtly anything like R-rated punk music. It's not like that. I just mean Jono has spent his entire life, and so has the other guys in the band, you know, coming up in this scene where they were playing to younger audiences because they themselves were younger, but now they're in their 20s, most of them probably above 25, and they're writing music that reflects who they are as people today and the things that they are dealing with today. And does that still have appeal to young audiences? I'm sure it does, but it also has a certain appeal to older audiences, such as myself, those of us who are in college or perhaps out of college and getting a little bit older, who still feel connected to a scene that so often panders to youth. Baggage Band is happy to have young fans, but they also love having fans their age because they're making music that they enjoy that reflects who they are, and what could be better? What could be more important in this industry? Before we get to that conversation, I do have to tell you a few quick things. First and foremost, this episode of Inside Music and every episode of Inside Music is brought to you by Holics, the music industry's leading digital promotional distribution platform. What that means is that Holics works with record labels, independent artists, and publicists from all over the music industry to share new and unreleased music with members of the media without fear of piracy. For more information on how Holics does this, and for access to a free 30-day trial, visit holics.com. That's HAULIX.com. This episode is also brought to you by Substream Magazine, who is a partner for this exclusive feature with Jono. Substream is a bi-monthly print magazine based out of the Midwest that covers music, film, and culture for the college demographic. I personally write for them. If you pick up issues, you can find pieces I've written on bands and film, but more importantly, it's a voice for people who feel like they don't have a place in the alternative world. This is a magazine for you, and if you like this feature, I urge you to check out their website, substreammagazine.com, or @Substream on Twitter. Finally, you need to buy this Baggage Band EP. It's a name-your-own-price release on Bandcamp, baggageband.bandcamp.com, but really, you have at least $3. That's $1 a song. Give them $2 a song. That's not asking that much of you, and you're supporting a great band who is making original music that is both infectious and compelling to listen to. I swear to you, you're gonna love this record, and I'm gonna play a little bit of it for you right now before we get to the conversation with Jono. It's good to know I've been away for a month and I'm still tripping over my own words. Anyways, once again, thank you so much for continuing to support this podcast, support me, and just be the great people that you are. I'm excited to be back in the saddle, and hopefully it will not be another month before the next episode arrives. So without further ado, here's a little Baggage Band, followed by my conversation with Jono. Welcome back to the show.
Another headline, another man shot into a crowd, and I won't hear a thing. Now I look outside, and I don't even recognize my street, the path waiting for me. It's cold and I know
So are you moving like today, or what's going on?
I'm at my parents' house already in Constantine, so I'm like technically in state. I just don't have my own place yet. So like yesterday I went to Grand Rapids and I looked at some apartments and it pretty much just depressed the crap out of me. And now I'm back now I'm back in Constantine.
So this is like super fresh then. Like this isn't like this is like just yesterday you came here or whatever?
Yeah, I drove in on Sunday. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's been a few days, but yesterday was the first day I went to look at any places, and I saw like, I don't know, like 8 places yesterday. I didn't like any of them. And it's just kind of terrible. Like, I love Grand Rapids. I think it's a great city, but I think every living situation in Grand Rapids I've ever seen, I'm like, this is horrible.
Yeah, like I feel like the best bet in Grand Rapids is just like finding like an old house in a random like side street kind of thing.
Exactly.
Because if you're doing like an apartment, it's going to be so expensive because they're all modern now.
Yeah, it's either super expensive or I really hate those apartment complexes that are like 4 miles long. And it's just, you know, like these big, deep communities that have no grocery stores or gyms or anything. And it's just like houses on houses on houses.
Yeah, that stuff sucks.
And Grand Rapids is like only that.
Yeah. Because like every time I go to visit my friends, like it's the exact same living situation. It just feels like Flint, but like $2,000 more a month. It's like, oh, okay. Here's this like tiny old house, but it's near stuff, so that's cool.
Yeah, I looked at this apartment yesterday, and this guy, I met him at the rental office of his apartment building, and I was like, let's just walk to your place. And he was like, oh, you don't want to do that. And he was like, you don't understand how far back this goes. And we got in his car, and we drove for minutes. And yeah, it was so deep. Like there were like 4 turns in this apartment complex to get to where his apartment was. And I was like, yeah, I don't think this is for me. I don't think I can live this far away from a road that's still not close to anything.
Oh, I mean, like my old apartment complex is kind of like that, where like, I don't know if that's like a specific Grand Rapids thing or whatever, but it's almost like a subdivision, but just different apartment buildings.
Yeah. That's a great way to go about that.
Yeah, because like that's pretty much like all the apartment things around here. But once you get like settled in, it's kind of nice that it's not by stuff. The only problem is you just have to drive more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing, and that's the other problem with Grand Rapids is like it's weird because the whole city is like run by like 5 corporate monopolies. Like Meijer is the only grocery store. Amway, Celebration Cinemas are the only theaters in the city. It's weird. And I think ultimately it's a detriment to the people that live there, and it's really good for those companies which are also based there. So it's this weird catch-22.
Well, it's bizarre because so I grew up in Ada, Michigan, and that's like the suburb of Grand Rapids. But it is so bizarre because like so I went to school with the DeVos kids and like stuff like that. Like it's like the 5 old school major families. So I went from like super white collar monopoly world and like pyramid scheme crap. And then I moved to this side of the state and it's all like, if you don't drive American, you should die. I'm like, wait, what? And like the whole thing is super different because everyone had like all foreign nice cars. And then here it's like pickup trucks and Ford. And like, it's just bizarre. It's like the super white collar versus super blue collar, like union part of town, you know? So it's like, so when I lived in Grand Rapids, I really didn't like it, like, because everyone was just super stuck up and kind of crappy. But then when I came here, it was like such a culture shock. But I'm like, oh, that's what the world's like. Okay. But at least Grand Rapids got hip and cool now. Like it used to just suck.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like everyone always is like Grand Rapids is a city on the come up, and I'm like they are, but they aren't up yet. Like it's they've got music and beer locked. Everything else they have not gotten yet.
Well, the weirdest thing, like, so they had the big art prize thing going on.
Yeah.
It's like a huge art show. And so we were like visiting that and we're like, oh, this is really cool. We're like walking around. And then we were walking by, and this is like right around Van Andel Arena, like 1 block over. And we saw these kids like they were like throwing like rocks at this homeless guy. Jesus. And we were like, but not like little rocks, like we're talking like big things, like really hard. And we were like, wait, is this like their buddy or like? And we like, oh, we're just like keep walking, just keep walking. Then we drove by again, and they were just like beating the shit out of this dude. Like he started like bleeding and stuff. And then we're like, okay, call the cops. This is insane. So we called the cops and like kept circling around, and it took them like 30 minutes to finally get there. And then the kids ran away, and we're like, oh, that's sounds like Grand Rapids.
Yeah, that's my thing. Like I drove from like the 28th Street Mall area to downtown through the city yesterday, and I was explaining it to my parents last night because they're like, what wasn't in it for you? And I was like, I drove through the whole city and I did not see a grocery store. Like
yeah.
it's like big food deserts.
If I were you, like, are you trying to like live in the city? Is that your ideal thing?
Well, I'm not even like set on Grand Rapids. It's more just like
Okay.
that's kind of just familiar. I'm planning on going over to your current side of the state maybe next week and looking at some places over there because all film critic shit happens on your side of the state. So if I want to do that,
Detroitish.
Yeah, I have to be at least Ann Arbor, which would still have that giant drive, but like at least it's Ann Arbor.
I mean, if I were you, like, it depends what your budget is, but like Royal Oak and Ferndale are super rad.
Yeah.
Royal Oak's kind of pricey, but Ferndale is like the Brooklyn of Detroit, and
like
not necessarily like rent wise, but like cool hip wise. That's where all like the artistic people live, and you're literally like a stone's throw from Detroit, which also got really nice too. Like obviously in certain spots, but
yeah, I'd like to live somewhere that's a little walkable, and I don't feel that Grand Rapids is a great city, but it's not a walkable city. You got to get in your car no matter what you want to do.
I mean, Michigan is a very much
you mean the Motor City state is that way?
Yeah, they kind of planned it out.
Yeah, but I'd say it almost like they designed it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Why our cars are shit spaced out?
Yeah. Well, you know, where I lived in Minneapolis wasn't like the best place in the world, but like I could walk to the grocery store, or I could ride a bike to a coffee shop or whatever. And everywhere I looked in Grand Rapids yesterday, it was like, oh, if I'm making dinner and I need cinnamon, I've got to like get in the car and drive for several minutes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like my local grocery store is like a 12 to 15 minute drive from here. So like, but it's one of those things though where it's the flip of, do you want to live in the city with a bunch of stuff going on, or do you want to just say, I want to stay in my house as much as I can and have an excuse to not leave. So like, because I've never actually like lived in like a city, but whenever I'm like traveling on tour or whatever, like I would love the idea of like walking out of my place, going 2 blocks, getting donuts and coffee, and being like, like that sounds like the life.
Yeah. So why can't we make that happen, Jono? Why can't you and I figure that out?
Because money, because reality, and Michigan.
Yeah, because we spent our lives trying to figure out music, and now we're pushing 30 and just don't have those skills.
Well, I mean, I was gonna say I have my whole situation pretty much set now. We're renting a house in Grand Blanc, so it's like I'm an hour from Detroit, I'm an hour from Ann Arbor. Like, so if I want to drive to a city, I can, but I just like have all my stuff like in my little zone, so I don't have to leave. It's like a not cool LA, but really spaced out with more trees.
Yeah, no.
Actually, it's not like LA at all, but pretty much for the sake of I don't leave this area much. That's the best way to put it.
So then you figured it out. You found a place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just trying to find a place when I wasn't expecting to have to find a place. So it's like more confusing.
Yeah. But I would definitely check into like Ferndale, at least like price wise. Yeah. Ferndale is the really cool place. And then a lot of Detroit got hip. The more you get closer to Flint, it'll get cheaper, but it's kind of like not sketchy, like Flint proper, like the actual city, like all the watershed, obviously. But like, it's really bizarre because the market was super cheap when we were moving into this place, but then because people realize it's cheap, now it's going nuts and houses are like selling the same day they're put on the market. So a lot of Michigan is like the investors market right now where they're like, oh, this is run down. This will be perfect. We'll have to buy it and sell it later.
Yeah, no, literally when I was in Grand Rapids yesterday, this girl I was showing me places was like, yeah, this is a really good price because you don't know what the Grand Rapids market is going to be like literally tomorrow. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
But
anyways, so we got like 10 minutes of that. Like we filled some time. That's good.
Yeah.
Dude, it's a good day for you. I've listened to the new EP today already.
Oh, awesome.
I haven't written about it because I've only been answering emails and talking shit about Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. But I'm getting
I saw that.
Dude, it makes me laugh. It's like the fight of the century. I'm not a sports guy, so whenever I get excited about something, most of the time I get way into it.
Well, that's why I'm like wrestling and
Exactly.
then college basketball in 1998.
I had to cancel my my streaming wrestling because I had this whatever they call their
The network.
Yeah, the network thing. I got that for WrestleMania, and then I got like way too heavy into wrestling again for a few weeks, and I was like, I gotta cancel it, or else I'm gonna fall down this wormhole.
Well, like we've had it, but we haven't even used the network in months, and we just still pay $10 a month. And we're like, this is stupid. And then I always tell my girlfriend, like, can you just cancel it? She's like, yeah, sure. And then like I watched it again the other day. I'm like, dang it, I actually like this. And then we watched the pay-per-view at my house. I'm like, well, I used it once in 7 months. So that's cool.
But it's almost worth it just to use it to watch the pay-per-views.
Yeah, I mean, like if you think about it used to be what, like $50 or $60 to get like the cable box just so you can watch a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And now it's like, $10. Like, that's fine.
I mean, it was cheap. I mean, yeah, and if you like get the free trial, like for WrestleMania, I just watched it for free because I had the free trial, and I was like, all right, that's perfect.
Yeah,
I don't mind, and it streams in HD, so like, what? Who cares?
Exactly.
But I watched the Roman Reigns thing last week. I watched that. I was like, shit, here I go, back down the rabbit hole.
Him getting the shit beat out of him.
Yeah, the whole fight. I was like, this is what I miss about wrestling.
Yep.
It was like 90s stuff.
Yeah, it definitely feels very 90s, which I'm cool with.
Yeah, no, it did, right? It felt like the old Undertaker, Mick Foley, Stone Cold crazy days.
Yeah, the Attitude Era.
Yeah, when Donald Trump called to make sure that McMahon didn't actually die in his car explosion. That's a real story, and it blows my mind.
Yep. that was when he was just a shitty rich reality star.
Instead of a shitty rich reality star president.
Yep.
So tell me, man, let's talk about the CP because I think it's the best thing you guys have done.
Awesome, thank you.
I mean, I've only listened to it this morning, so I don't mean that as an offensive thing, but it's like
it gets worse with every listen. That's the best part of it.
You're like, you just haven't listened to it enough. The shelf life is very short. Tell me about it. Tell me, where'd it come from? Like, when did you start working on it? Why these just 3 songs?
So the overall story behind it is we released our first EP in 2015, and that was the first time like I as an individual actually wrote a full batch of songs by myself. I didn't have my brother in the band with me. It was just me. So I was kind of like, let's see what kind of feeling I want to have for this. Like, I want to just test out some things. And I definitely wanted to go more of like the emo indie kind of direction, like more mid-pace, slower kind of stuff. Because I just had the whole like punk rock thing in my head where I'm like, I don't want to do this fast beat anymore. I don't want to do this stuff. Like I did that for 13 years with the Swellers. So then as time went on, we had a few band member changes, and now we have this lineup of just super, like we're stacked with awesome musicians where like you could just come up with an idea and people are like, okay. And then we all just start going nuts with something. So as that started happening, I was like, I could get a lot more creative with this stuff. And not only that, but get more upbeat and, just do stuff that I didn't think this band was going to do. So we started writing a full length. And originally we were like, let's write a full length, let's demo stuff out, and we'll send it to labels. And what people don't know, and it's kind of a weird thing to publicly talk about, but if you followed the stuff I've been writing for the past 5 years, like I always just make stuff in the open anyway. Shopping to labels is very weird. And it's one of those things where if like me as an individual writing for some big magazines and sites and stuff like that, when I'm sending this stuff to people are looking at me as I'm a writer. Why am I sending music? So they could send me like, can you review this album? Can you do this? So when it's my turn to send something, there's just this odd kind of feeling in the air. And I could sense it with some people. So I'm just like, whatever, grain of salt, like I'll just work harder. We'll see what happens. So I started taking like either the lack of response or people being super cool with us and being like, hey, we're keeping tabs with you guys. Like, this is awesome. And it just clicked one day. And I was like, we have these awesome live demos. We could just like polish these up and re-record some stuff. And then we had the song we did on the ACLU benefit compilation. So finally I said, if the songs that we were pushing to see if we could get any interest, if that didn't instantly get us signed, I was like, well, let's put them out right now because we're proud of the songs. And if anything, that means we get to push ourselves to write even better songs next time. So I was like, so let's do this. Let's release 3 songs. So it's kind of a teaser EP. And not only is it kind of a teaser of people reintroducing the band, we're also getting to say, hey, we also have all these songs saved for when we do a full length. So the nice thing about it, and something that I haven't done in a while, instead of just every year putting out 10 new songs, we're just taking our time. And whenever we have a batch of songs that we're very proud of, we're like, I want everyone to hear this. So that's why it ended up just being the 3 songs, but it's still like 15 minutes of music, which is, I think, a really cool listening experience.
No, I absolutely agree. And I kind of like it because there's so much music today that I think if you give someone 3 songs, they're like, okay, I can make time for 3 songs.
Yeah. And like, it's a nice, like, in between things. Like if you like on the way to work or something like that, I could listen to a whole EP on the way to where I work. So it's that nice, quick little thing, but if you see us live, you're going to see our EP plus those few songs. And then we'll have, some random ones we haven't recorded yet. But like, it's the whole like attention span thing where you get just enough and then you want more.
I like that. I like that about, because you, like you said, you keep them wanting more, and I think that that's really the key to building up a new band. Even though you guys have been around for a little bit now, but you're still very much like raising awareness with each new release.
Yeah, and I feel like to most people, though, I had to do a total mindset change with a lot of stuff. I always assumed that no one has ever heard our band, whereas before I was like, oh, people have probably heard of our band when we were in the Swellers. But that was just a stupid mentality. Like, you should always think you're starting from scratch in the best way possible. So when we do this, a lot of people for the first time are hearing us because of these songs. But to me, it's great because these are my favorite songs we've ever done. So now it's like, okay, you're getting an example of what I think we sound like, not the one that's from 2 years ago.
Exactly. And it's I have that same problem where I assume people understand like the aesthetic of something, and I feel like I like the Kevin Smith has a saying that's like every podcast is someone's first podcast. I think you kind of have to look at your music that way. Every song is someone's first time hearing your band.
Yeah, and I feel like even going to shows, like there's all these little things, and I'm totally having to like relearn how I am a musician now because I went from drumming to singing and playing bass, and I was never at the front of the stage. Like that stuff is still super bizarre to me, but the few things I've had to learn, and kind of based on what you were saying, like a major thing is the perception that people will get from you and how you feel and how you're conveying that. So if you're having a bad show or you drop a pick or you're out of tune and you're just like mumbling to yourself and like frowning and grunting and you're like, this sucks. People are going to see that and they're like, yeah, that band's a bummer. Like this sucks. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that you were performing for people. So even if you could just power through that and you put on a good performance, it's a performance. That's what it is. Like you're an entertainer. And even if you're not feeling it, you're doing it for other people. So if you power through that, you do a good show, people will even go, man, that band was really energetic and really cool. And like, I could tell that they had heart versus they don't seem like they care what we think and they don't think anything is worth it. Because I see a lot of bands like that, and that just sucks to watch.
So for you, with these 3 songs, like, do you have like a goal as a band? Like these 3 songs will hopefully get us to this point, or is it like hopefully this keeps them satiated until we get 3 more songs?
We have a stockpile of new stuff right now.
I like that.
And yeah, so the way I look at it is, I like the idea of just giving out a little bit and hoping that people pay attention and they'll see that we're working hard, because transitioning from full-time band to getting a bunch of new guys that may have not toured full time or haven't done it in years. Like this band is like a weirdo all-stars of Michigan band. So each band member, I think it's like 3 years apart. So it's like we have a 23-year-old, 26-year-old, I'm 29, and then our one dude, I think, is 31 or 32. So all of us have different experience with being in a band, but all of us have the same goals. We're like, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to be on a label, but we would love to be on a label. We would love to have a booking agent, have a manager. Like this, to a lot of us, this is like our final shot at being in a real band. And, you know, we're doing it for fun, and we had to like adjust the way we think about things to not expect much. But when you get that stuff, holy shit, is it worth it? Because you leave your like crappy retail job or your part-time job, and you just get that glimpse of what things could be like. So when we opened for Against Me, we played in Bloomington, Illinois with them. And the second we were on a big stage, we were like, this feels like home. Like maybe we're not the basement band like all of us are used to being in. Like we could be like a big venue band. And we played Motion City Soundtrack's final Detroit show. And that was like our 5th show or something as a band. And that was the most comfortable I felt. So we were like, I think we know where we want to be, but now we have to find out how to get there. So as much as we're all experienced with different facets of being in bands, it's very awesome when you finally start getting that extra help, and then you just, you know, kind of get pushed into the stratosphere.
Yeah, I think you guys could be that kind of band. And when it comes to writing material, do you think you look at it differently if you're looking at the idea of maybe we aren't a basement band? Do you think about it differently?
Writing wise, I don't really, just because like I grew up listening to like Weezer, Foo Fighters, Jimmy Eat World, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the music I really like are bands that were already playing arenas or huge venues, you know, mm-hmm. Like, and of course I like a lot of underground stuff, and like I go to basement shows all the time, but like the way I naturally write, I have that pop sensibility where I'm like, I like big choruses. I like weird ear candy. Like there's all this kind of stuff that I'm into. But now it's kind of a matter of, if we're a band that sounds like this, but then like the whole pop punk thing is big, like we're not really a pop punk band, at least like for the first time, I'm not really in that anymore. Yeah. So we're like, so how do we get into this other world of stuff, you know? And not saying we don't want to be in the pop punk world. Like we're definitely cool with that, but it's just, you can't really predict it anymore. Like there's no formula to being like, okay, if I write a song this way, I will definitely get big, because I don't want to sell out, and I don't think I can just because of my morals and stuff. But like, I'm definitely fine writing a catchy rock record, and I think that's what this is already.
Well, I was thinking more like if you're like the jump Against Me kind of made sound wise from Searching for a Former Clarity to New Wave in that 2-year period. It seemed like all of a sudden they snapped into like this bigger sound where it was like, oh shit, they figured it out. Like they figured out what they were trying to do. And that's kind of been how they built since then. So I wondered if when you had this moment where you're like, maybe we're not a basement band, you're like, oh, I could maybe do something a little different.
Yeah, well, I think as far as that, it was more of getting our sound bigger. Yeah. So instead of being like I'm trying to think of a good way to put it. You know, when you see a band, let's say like Bloodfest or something like that, like you see a band on like a Bloodfest stage and you're like, man, that's really cool. It's like, I'm cool with that. And that's what I felt like our first EP was. But like with the newer stuff we're writing, I want people to look at this and just go like, oh, this is a thing. Like this is an experience, you know? And I don't think I could write like anything like super bizarre or crazy. Like I just have like a natural tendency to want to write a certain way. Mm-hmm. So I feel like with Against Me, they had such a super raw beginning. Whereas this band was like, I already did all that stuff with my last band. So the point where we started was like, I feel like halfway in that transition point already. And then this is like another step forward. And then once the next record comes out, like there's not going to be any expectation. It's not like people are going to be like, oh, they sold out. We're like, no, we're pretty much going to kind of sound the same. Like if anything, you know, we'll just have like more dynamic and stuff, because I'm always listening to different music or going back to stuff I loved. And the main thing I want to do is write music that makes me feel a certain way. And if
Mm.
I feel like I am proud of it and feel a certain way, that will start reflecting on other people.
Mm.
But I also love the idea of getting the outside perspective from friends and like a producer and that kind of stuff, to where they could kind of like rein me in and be like, okay, buddy, I know you're like stuck in this world in your head, but what about this? And the second I take that step out of my comfort zone, like we did with the song Half Full, Mark Hudson, he did Against Me, Saves the Day, Taking Back Sunday, like a bunch of bigger bands. And he's one of my, like, sounds weird saying it, but he's like one of my best friends, like whenever he's in town in Michigan. So we'll hang out and talk about music and talk about life. And when we were recording that Half Full song with him, it was a totally different experience, because he just like, he didn't chop the song up, but he would look at me and be like, I feel like this could be more interesting. And that would push me to write something more interesting. And then he was like, try this, try this. And we wrote a completely different feeling song compared to what we had originally. So it's like that kind of thing where it's like that nice welcome outsider opinion can really reflect the band in a cool way.
Mm. No, absolutely. Let me ask you this, because I was thinking about this morning. Like, in your head, what does a Baggage fan, like, who is a Baggage fan? Like, because it's different. Because you guys, what I love about the band is that it feels like a band that people can grow into. Like if I grew up listening to pop punk and all that, Baggage is a band that, like, I hit 23 and I'm like, shit, life sucks. And it's like, oh, hey, there's still, that style of music still exists for me. And you can kind of grow up. It's like grown up in a way.
Yeah, like, I feel like there's all these different genres of music that have like had their ebbs and flows over the years. But to me, like, I like kind of sitting in that world of like people that really like Saves the Day, like Stay What You Are. And like they're into like Alkaline Trio or Bayside or Against Me, where it's like they like punk or they like pop punk, and we're like that in the middle band. So I just imagine just people like me, where it's like I'm a 20-something dude or, you know, woman that's like, I grew up listening to this kind of music, but it's not cheesy where it's, you know, I don't want to sound dated, but I also want to sound like something reminiscent of something that made you feel something in your formative years, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's what gives you the magic.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. It just, I found it when you said that you were writing stuff that really appealed to you and things that kind of reflected who you are now. I think that's, I find that so interesting and important, because I feel like so many artists get trapped into the, we got to write for our demo as opposed to write for ourselves, and, you know, people will find us.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we are our own demographic. So I think that's why it works out.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of like that piebald record, We Are the Only Friends We Have.
Exactly, yeah. And which makes me even more stoked because we get to play with them. So I'm like, oh my God, you don't know how much you mean to me.
Yeah, maybe.
But I'm not going to say that. I'm going to play it cool.
Maybe they're the perfect case study for like a band like Baggage in a way, because they did kind of fit in their own world where they could appeal to the younger demo, but they always, to me, were kind of a decidedly older crowd band.
Yeah, and like I would love to be that band that kind of coasts in both worlds, where like I want to be the Hannah Montana of punk, where like we'll get like the underground punk kids, and then we'll get like the older emo kids, you know what I mean? So it's like, or like, you know, the newer pop punk, like I feel like we kind of just sit in a nice place, whereas like every other band I've ever been in, like, is in a kind of weird spot. But like with this now, it's like, oh, like no one's gonna hear it and be like, oh, I don't know. They'll be like, oh, that sounds like something I have heard, but in a good way, you know?
So where do we go from here with Baggage? Do you guys have fall plans?
Yeah, we're playing the Fest in October.
That's awesome.
And we're working on a little tour down there and back.
Of course.
And then pretty much our next goal is just, we're trying to hop on more support tours.
Yeah.
We want to be a touring band, and unlike bands I was in before, like we're going to do the smart touring, not like, all right, we're touring 10 months out of the year. We're all broke, but it's okay. Like we have like, not like families per se, but like significant others and bills and stuff like that. So I know there's this happy medium in between where it'll work out. But yeah, pretty much we're going to just work really hard. And our main goal is, whether we get signed or not to another label, we just want to keep traveling, keep writing music, and eventually make this the only thing we do instead of having to do our other crappy jobs.
And you kind of just touched on it, but the lady's all about the road and you getting out there for a while.
Yeah, when we started dating, we were like kind of seeing each other, and then I went on the road for 6 weeks. So that's how it started.
So she knows how it is.
Yeah. Also, the pest guy is walking up now. He's gonna make sure we don't have any mice.
Perfect. Well, I mean, I think we've actually got enough. I mean, we've talked for half an hour already. So,
awesome.
If you got to deal with the pest guy, we're good.
Okay.
But I do want to. So, real quick though, you got the fest. Do you have any shows between now and the fest we should promote right now?
I'll be right there in a second. So you're good to come in if you want to check stuff in here. Okay. All right, cool. All right, awesome. I opened the door and the guy was just staring at me with his head tilted, and I was like, like, are you coming in? Or literally all he does is check these mouse traps or like the little like poison thingies and see if the mice were eating them. And they do this like once every few months. And then I have a really weird conversation because one of the guys was telling me about like ancient Egyptians and the role of women and like this really bizarre stuff where I'm like, oh buddy, like I don't want to tell you my like moral and political views because you have poison in your possession and that's scary. But anyway, you're talking about the fest.
No, yeah.
I missed the question. I'm sorry.
No. I just asked real quick, so I know you got stuff to do. But what other shows do you guys have between now and then we can promote?
So we have the tour with Best X, Cozy, and Promise of Redemption. So we're going to New York and back with them. It's like a little 6-day thing. Then we're playing with a band called Sweat in Flint, which is probably the biggest band in Flint right now. They're doing an album release at Soggy Bottom Bar. And then we're playing with Piebald at the end of the month at the Shelter in Detroit on July 28th. And then after that's the fest. So we're pretty much trying to like fill in more cool shows between then and after then. But for now, that's the main stuff we have going on.
That Piebald show is going to be rowdy.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. I'm gonna freak out.
Oh no, that's awesome! The Shelter is so small. I like it. It's gonna be hot.
Yeah, yeah. That was one of my favorite places playing back in the day. So I'm very stoked to start playing there again.
Okay. All right, man. Well, I might have to come out to this Piebald show. I'm not gonna lie to you. I got to look at apartments anyways.
Well, that'd be very awesome.
All right.
I will probably have to let you go then.
All right. So wait, what's people can find the Good That Never Comes. We never named the EP, so that's what it's called.
Yeah.
And it's available on Bandcamp, right?
Yep. So baggageband.bandcamp.com.
And then is it on all the streaming services, or will it be soon?
It will be soon. Yep.
All right, man. You have a good day, and I'll make sure people know the good word.
All right. Take care, man.
I'll talk to you soon, dude. Bye.
Bye.